A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. These famous words have been said and quoted since 1791 when the Second Amendment, along with the rest of the Bill of Rights, was ratified. Our forefathers could have never foreseen how disputed the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution would become. The Second Amendment, along with gun rights and gun control, are always nationally debated topics and become even more heated when a mass killing takes place in the country. I grew up in a gun advocacy household and began learning proper gun safety and rights at 12 years old. Since that time, I have bought weapons, lost friends to firearm murders, and followed the gun control, gun right topics throughout the years. Today we will look at why the Second Amendment was created, how it is debated and translated today, and why it is so important to every one of us in this room. Harry Henderson states in his book, a different model for arms bearing is found in the varying degrees in the city-states of ancient Greece and the Roman Republic. In the Republic, a person who was entitled to a voice on how the state would be ran was also responsible for helping defend it. Our founding fathers believed in this wholeheartedly. After all, they just fought through the American Revolution. The framers wanted the American people to have protection not only from foreign powers, but also from their own government if need be. David Young is quoted in Lee Adams' The Second Amendment Primer, the necessity of an armed populace, protection against disarming the citizens, and the need to guard against a select militia and assure a real militia which could defend liberty against any standing forces the government might raise were topics interspread throughout the ratification period. The Second Amendment was written primarily by James Madison, who was influenced by many other famous framers such as George Washington, who also famously said, "A free people ought not be armed and disciplined, not only to be armed and disciplined, but they should have sufficient arms and ammunition to maintain a status of independence from any who might attempt to abuse them, which would include their own government." Mr. Washington, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, and the majority of the forefathers gave the American populace a pre-existing right to lawfully bear arms, but remains intensely debated in today's society. There are two sides to every dispute, and in this particular one, we have gun rights advocates and gun control advocates. However, most people are not activists on either side of the issue, but in the gun control polls, as you can see in this graph, it illustrates that a high level of generalized support for gun control is there, though opinions on more extreme measures, such as the total ban of assault weaponry, is more evenly split, and supporters and opponents, between supporters and opponents. But we can see that the majority of the U.S. populace does want more strict laws for gun control, but when it comes to more specific topics such as banning all handguns or assault weaponry, it evens out to 50-50. Most gun advocates view gun ownership as a right similar to freedom of speech or press. Harry Henderson states, generally, gun right advocates want gun ownership to be treated in a way similar to speech or writing. Every adult citizen who does not have a criminal or mental health record should be able to own and carry a gun of his or her choice with minimal restrictions. Although it had been argued over before, gun control became a nationally debated topic for the first time in 1933 after an assassination attempt on President Franklin D. Roosevelt failed. Wide press coverage and growing public pressure soon led to important questions about the word meanings in the amendment. Does the reference to militia state the framers' purpose in guaranteeing the right to bear arms, or does it limit the right to arms that can be used in the militia? And does the people refer to the collective right to maintain a militia or the individual right to keep and bear arms? These are major questions that are debated today over the Second Amendment, but the answers to them lie in the past and the words of our forefathers. A reported statistic from procon.org states the United States has a 88.8 guns per 100 people. That accounts for 270 million guns alone in the United States, which is the highest total per capita in the world. 22% of Americans own one or more guns. America's persuasive gun culture stems from the part of its colonial history, its revolutionary roots, frontier expansion, and the Second Amendment itself. We see in the news every other week the Second Amendment being questioned, whether it's the aim of a political figure or a shooting, and we don't even realize it. The Second Amendment is more than just an American right to bear arms, but it gives us power to check and balance the government should it ever become tyrannical. It doesn't matter if you're a gun control advocate or a gun right advocate. The amendment is a right that was established for us by the founders who knew we would need it in the future. So finally, in these short few minutes, I've explained to you what very few American citizens know about our Second Amendment and why it is one of our most vital rights given to us. This subject will continue to remain divided in two main groups, but I encourage each and one of you to support our right to bear arms. As long as the American people continue to fight for our basic rights, just as our forefathers did, our Second Amendment will remain in place, still standing. I'll close with a final quote from our first Commander-in-Chief. When government takes away citizens' right to bear arms, it becomes a citizen's duty to take away the government's right to govern. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.